This episode is proudly supported by Anchor Food Professionals. Whether you're a caterer, cafe operator, or chef running a commercial kitchen, everyone knows quality products are the foundation of successful dishes. Anchor Food Professionals is a trusted supplier to the hospitality industry and has built a stellar reputation thanks to their consistently excellent butter, cream, and cheese. As the food service business of Fonterra, Anchor Food Professionals is home to many well-known brands such as Perfect Italiano, Mainland, Western Star, and Bega, and is now an important part of the Australian food service sector. Anchor Food Professionals has a history of innovation and expertise in sustainable dairying that delivers a world-class product portfolio. If quality cheese, cream, and butter are important to your creations, head to anchorfp.com.au to explore the range.
So often when people are spending money in relation to food, they don't really understand what's gone into growing it and what's gone into producing it. And that's often when things are questioned of, oh, why does this cost so much?
Welcome back to Dirty Linen. It's Dani Valent with you as always, and super excited to be with you for this episode, which is part of our special series called Journey to Barragunda. We are catching up with chef and restaurateur Simone Watts every couple of weeks or whenever she has news to share about the building, development, creation, literally from the ground up, of a new restaurant and farm and I want to say phenomenon on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. Simone, welcome back to Dirty Linen.
Thanks, Dani. Always a pleasure. Getting very real and exciting over here. So nice to touch base and let you know how it's all going.
Yeah, well, maybe for people who haven't caught up with the first episode, and I do encourage you to listen, but just give us a little reminder of the Barragunda project and then let's bring us up to date.
We're opening a 40-seat restaurant here in Cape Schanck on the Mornington Peninsula based on a farm called Barragunda, which is 1,000 acres, sort of stretching from Fingal all the way down to Greens Bush, with rolling orchards, 2 acres of market garden and a big grazing space and lots of native vegetation. And getting very excited to be getting closer to sharing it with the world.
Well, my excitement is mapping alongside yours, although let's be fair, I'm not doing any of the work. Tell us where things are at the moment and what's keeping you busy.
Well, we're actually about to roll into wedding season here at Barragunda, so that on top of opening a restaurant is keeping my my little brain very full. But it's been a good sort of trial to look at how it's all going to work together. So the events piece of Barragunda is quite a large one. We have sort of 2 events venues on the space, one being a large heritage barn down sort of one end of the farm, and then the restaurant space itself lends itself to a variety of different events, from stand-up sort of canapé functions to sit-down weddings to corporate things. So we're really just looking at how that's going to be integrated into the restaurant world as well, without sort of, the restaurant is the baby, is the driving force of the space. But I think as a lot of chefs, restaurateurs will appreciate these days, having that diversity in revenue as a small business is it's really important. The wage costs have gone up quite considerably since last time I was running a restaurant, and I'm sort of really learning more how important that diversity within the restaurant world is. So, we're looking at how the event space is going to work, and how we'll sort of have different packages available to people, and how that will work with the farmers as well, how we can include them and support them and other local producers as part of our events, and then bring the team in together and that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like your head must be in a lot of different places and you have to be really organised. What sort of offering are you able to do for the weddings and the other functions? Like, is it all driven by the farm still, or do you have to look further afield I guess you've got to plan these menus well in advance. Like, how does that all work?
Yeah, it's actually in many ways much easier with events, especially with weddings, because they tend to be booked, a year or so in advance. So, no, it is still very much driven by the farm itself. So, the menus are all very seasonal. The weddings that we do down in the barn, we structure those in 2 different months. So we run them in both March and October. So, we usually do 4 in each month, and they tend to have the same menu. And we sort of sit down with the clients and explain how much planning is involved in actually growing things, so they run the same menu. And I think as soon as you do explain that, they're much more lenient to understand and let you guide them on what's going to be on the menu. And they love the idea. They can come and visit, see the carrots being grown for their wedding and things like that. And we're starting to develop more flower growing on the farm as well, so they have that ability to be able to style their event with flowers and foliage from the farm. So they feel really connected from the beginning and through the whole process, which is lovely.
Oh, that's very heartwarming. I love the idea of these carrots. Just following the journey of the carrots. It's much more an appealing vision of the countdown to a wedding than other kind of bridezilla type moments that you could imagine. So that's very earthy and connected, which is so befitting of Barragunda. So Simone, what else has been happening? What else is on your mind?
So the thing that I'm most excited about at the moment is, so we're in the process of expanding the collective, which at the moment is just based on the farm itself, and it's our model of land sharing essentially. So we run a series of long-term leases for individual businesses who lease space off the farm, and then we purchase produce or whatever they're producing off them, and put it either onto our online store or use it within the restaurant. And that always sort of began as looking at issues within the food systems and issues for young farmers with access to land and capital, and how we could support that on the farm. But the more that I've sort of been setting up the restaurant and seeing the space and understanding that we're going to be closed a couple of days a week, and having all of these sort of amazing producers and people talking to me saying that they're sort of wanting to do their own thing on the side or start their own small business, my brain started ticking a little bit more, and that the collective could be a lot more than simply land sharing, and it could be kitchen sharing as well. And so we've experimented with the lease agreements that we have in kind of transferring those to a kitchen scenario, and we're in some very exciting discussions at the moment with a lovely cheese producer. So we are looking very close to being able to have a micro cheesery within the kitchen space, and also a micro bakery as well, with a beautiful girl who is hopefully going to come on board as our pastry baker chef, but will run her own business at the same time, doing cakes and doing like different pastries for markets, and then the idea is that all of these producers can combine and potentially do, Barragunda collective market stalls and things like that, where markets are an amazing thing, but they're quite a beast for young farmers to have the time not only to, grow the veggies, but then pack it all and take it all to a market and spend the day at the market when they really want to be on the farm working. But the more people you have involved in that, they can both share the cost, they can share the time, and the risk becomes a lot less. So we really just like this idea of diversifying the farm and the offering as much as we can, and that's, that aids what we're able to put on the menu in the restaurant as well. But it just makes it such a beautiful little family of people doing really interesting things. And, I don't think I'll ever leave the kitchen if on my days off there's someone in there making cheese.
Oh, it sounds like such a rich learning environment that you'll be creating as well. I mean, what are some of the other food systems issues that you are trying to solve with initiatives like this?
I think it's the sort of access to capital and equipment that are the big things that, it costs quite a bit to set up a restaurant, and, you've got rationales sitting there. You've got, we've got a big double boiler stock kettle that sits there literally empty for 2 days a week, where, if you're someone and take the microcheesery as an example, that might be like looking at doing their own thing, but they're like, oh gosh, I've got to buy a cheese vat, and I've got to do, I've got to buy a dry ager, and I've got to have space to be able to do it in. It's like, why couldn't we just utilize, the things that we're not using on our days off and share things rather than everyone having to buy something? And that was a very similar process within the farming side of things. Like for a young farmer to be able to have to, buy a tractor or have access to, satellite rainbird systems so they're able to water when they're not here is so very expensive. But when it's up and running and existing and being utilized for other things, and again can be shared, it just makes so much more sense in those early startup parts of both farm and hospitality businesses.
Are you finding, because you're doing, your operation is very innovative and you're looking at different ways of working and sharing resources, are there templates that you're able to access to create agreements for this, or do you feel like you're really doing this work from the beginning?
There was some assistance with that. ASFA have a couple of templates that we were, that's the Australian Food Sovereignty Association, had a couple of templates of similar land sharing agreements. But what we found when we were sort of going through and researching the process was that every farm and every situation is different. And although there are some sort of core values that can align with it, you really had to sort of path your own way with it. But that being said, now that we've gone through and done that process, which was kind of messy and kind of difficult, to be honest, like I'm one of those people that it's like, oh, can't we just all get along and we'll just all share the farm and it'll all be lovely and happy and beautiful? And then when you realize you actually have to go through and write some legal documents so everyone feels safe and secure. And that process was a big learning curve for me, but very interesting. But since going on from doing that, we've noticed how many other places down here are very interested in land sharing. So we've been sharing our template to quite a few other farms who have taken it on and are doing it. And, if anyone's listening now and is interested in what it might mean to share their land to whether it be farmers or producers, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to share that template, because it is a really important thing moving forward for places, especially like on the peninsula or Daylesford, where you've got a lot of land that's not necessarily being used for food production that could be. I think it's an amazing way forward. And look, the same with the kitchen agreements. There's so many kitchens out there that sit closed for a certain amount of time that, there might be a jam maker or a producer around the corner from you that's just dying to have some space to be able to produce things on your days off. That, if you want to see the way that we've set up the kitchen agreements, I'm more than happy to share that sort of information.
I love that, Simone. That's so generous of you, and definitely, I guess, is a sign of how committed you are to the ideas behind what you're doing there at Barragunda. You also make me think of a couple of restaurants in inner city Melbourne that I know recently are applying similar models. So there's a cafe that is a Congolese restaurant a few nights a week, so they're sharing that space. And a really popular Vietnamese restaurant has just expanded into a cafe space. The cafe owner only wanted to just, I guess, retract to just doing coffees in the morning, and then the Vietnamese restaurant is in there for lunch and dinner, and it's absolutely pumping. So it's great seeing people looking at resources and working out sensible, equitable, and I guess mutually fruitful and worthwhile ways to use those resources, but also give enrich the offerings to the local community. So I feel like, there are a lot of people with aligned ideas. It really feels like this is perhaps the start of something.
Yeah, look, I think with the state that the restaurant industry is in and how difficult things are financially for everyone, it's that out-of-the-box thinking that we all sort of need to start having in order to diversify our offerings and our revenue from simply, menu-based items. And sharing space is and looking at different ways, whether that be for us it's our events offering, that we can make things a little bit more financially viable, because it's tough out there.
I also wonder, Simone, you mentioned the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance, and I've had calls recently to look at the I'll get the name wrong, but with the manual that they released recently for small farmers. And I was looking at that because I was chatting to Annie Smithers at her farm in Lionsville, and the issues that she's had watering her vegetables for use in her restaurant because she didn't have the right water rights to use that water. And I'm just wondering, what your take is on the regulatory system overall for people who want to grow produce for restaurants.
Oh gosh, it's so dated and it's so very, very broken. I don't think that many people that have anything to do with that legislation have boots on the ground anymore. And I think that's where, the Australian Food Sovereignty Association is so great in giving voice to real farmers and understanding, how difficult things are and how lucky we are in Australia to have access to producers, that we need to support them, and legislation needs to change if that's the case. Otherwise, we're just going to be passing everything over to mass agriculture, and the little guys are slowly going to wean off. We see it, in the abattoir world at the moment, with more and more large abattoirs stopping allowing small businesses to have their animals go through. So it's one day going to mean that only large organisations are going to be supplying us meat, and things need to change drastically.
What do we lose when we're more reliant on big agriculture?
Food sovereignty. we lose all of the people that are doing the right thing for the environment. Large scale agriculture, whether that be food production or meat production, very, very rarely has the environment in its mind. It is simply about mass production at the cheapest rate possible. So, if we start getting into the world of climate change and regeneration, those things don't happen in large scale agriculture. They happen in small, diverse farms who are connected to the land, and they're the ones that are really suffering from just these old school legislations.
I want to bring this conversation to mental health as well, because, Annie's been quite open about her identity being bound up in her life as, someone who has her hands in the soil, as well as, chopping food in a kitchen and preparing beautiful provincial French dishes for her small restaurant. What's the feeling like for you as a chef when you're growing produce and able to see that through to the plate?
Oh, for me, it's a breath of fresh air in my life to be living rurally now. I lived and worked in the city for so very long, and the feeling of being connected to the natural world and seeing where your food is grown and being a part of it speaks to me so much, both on a mental level, but also on a physical level as well. I feel much more nourished as a human being, both from what I'm eating, but also just that feeling of being able to be outside, to be surrounded by green. It makes my little heart sing.
I feel like, as a diner and someone who watches restaurants and I guess is becoming more and more interested in the supply chain as time goes on, and as I make those connections and talk to more people, I feel like, these are the kinds of stories that we want to hear as diners. I mean, what difference do you think it makes to people who come and eat in a restaurant where the food is grown, just with such intimate touch, where you know which carrots are going to be served for which wedding months down the track? Like, what do you think? What difference do you think that makes to diners?
I think it's the storytelling aspect, and it's giving faces to farmer and it's giving value to food. I think so often when people are spending money, in relation to food, they don't really understand what's gone into growing it and what's gone into producing it. And that's often when things are questioned of, oh, why is this cost so much? But when you visit a farm, when you're sitting there, eating eating your meal and you can see 3 farmers out there weeding and picking vegetables, and you can see out into the back kitchen where someone's, rolling the sourdough that's going to ferment for the next 48 hours. And sorry, I've got a very obnoxious cocky that's just landed on the roof squawking, so if you can hear that.
Well, that's great. We want to hear all the cockies, and they are such hooligans, but yeah, we love them.
But yeah, I think it gives real value, not just on a financial side of things, but on a production side of things. You need to be able to tell that story.
Love it. Well, as the time draws closer, I'm getting more and more excited about hearing those stories and eating those stories. Simone, what's ahead for the next couple of weeks? What's looming largest in the Barragunda story?
Well, we've got weddings on this weekend. So down in the barn, I'll be cooking a beautiful late spring wedding for a lovely couple that we've been working with sort of for the next 12 months. And then the week after, Marie, our lovely restaurant manager, joins me full time, and it will be heads down, finishing all of the sort of styling side of things for the restaurant. All of the furniture arrives next week. The builders move out, and yeah, it all sort of becomes set up time. So yeah, very exciting times ahead.
How many weeks is it till opening?
We're looking at mid-February. So January, we've sort of got off to finish all of the styling and get the landscaping finished. My partner, Sam, who runs Reforest Nursery, is very busy out there at the moment getting all of the trees and everything plugged into the landscaping, which is just starting to, it looks so incredible. The inside of the restaurant is all very sort of sandy, neutral tones. And now that all the landscaping's going in, you just surrounded by this sea of green outside. It's just so beautiful.
Oh, well, we will catch up with you in a couple of weeks to hear how things are progressing. But I've literally got chills running up and down my spine hearing you talk about it. I'm just, so thrilled and excited and really grateful to be able to share this journey with you. Thanks so much, Simone.
Well, thanks, Dani. I look forward to having you down here soon to see it in the flesh.
Yeah, definitely. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.